So we saw the issue where if we just registered with a user and logged them in using passport.js, if we make a change to one of our backend files over here, Nomon will restart our server, thus wiping all of our session data in the process, thus logging our user out, even though we didn't specify that we really wanted to log our user out. And in order to fix this, we want to make use of something called a session store. And basically what that's going to do is rather than storing our session data specifically on the app, it's going to be storing our session data within our database instead. So if we head on over to our browser again and we click on Express.js session, this is the GitHub repo for Express.js session. If we scroll on down to the bottom of this, you're going to see a section specifically dedicated towards session stores. So you'll see that this is a problem that needs to be alleviated across multiple databases. So you'll see right here, the following modules implement a session store that is compatible with Express.js session. So you'll see that they have a bunch of options for a bunch of different databases, but the one that we want to use is going to be, where is it? Not MySQL, that is going to be Microsoft SQL. We want to make use of Express-MySQL session. So we're going to be clicking on this, and we're going to be installing this with the following npm script. So we can just copy it, head on over to terminal, open up a new tab, and go ahead and install that now. So once that is installed, we need to make use of this within our app. So we need to require this line of code right here. We're going to be copying it and pasting it beneath our session object right there. Set on over to our app, go to app.js, and right beneath our session stuff, let's go ahead and put it beneath passport as well. We're going to be requiring MySQL store, but to actually make use of this, we need some options, and this may look a little familiar to you. These are the same options that we're using to create a database connection over in db.js. So what we can do is we can just go ahead and copy this right here and paste it within app.js, but let's see where these options are actually being used within this example code. So you'll see these options are being used to create a new session store right here, and then they're being used within the session snippet that we created earlier. So let's go ahead back on over to app.js. We need to make sure that we're creating these options right above our session snippet. So we'll go ahead and paste this right here. I'm going to reformat everything really quickly. And then if you look at the code right here, it's called options. The variable is called options, not connection. So I'm going to replace it with that. And then it's just equal to a blank object literal. Well, not a blank object literal, but it doesn't have the MySQL create connection in front of it. So I'm going to make sure that I delete this, delete the ending parentheses, and I'll go ahead and close this out with a semicolon. And now that we have these options, we now need to actually create a session store. So we're going to take this line of code, paste it beneath our options. It's already making use of the options that we specified right here. Now we just need to integrate this within the snippet that we pulled in previously. So to integrate this within the snippet, you see all we have to do is we need to create a property called store, and we're just passing through this object variable right here. So all we're going to do, create a property called store, doesn't really matter in which position it's placed. We're going to be referencing this right here. So if we save this and look in our terminal, we should not be getting any errors in NodeMon. Let's go ahead and refresh the page just to make sure. If we look at NodeMon, okay, you'll see that indeed our user has gotten logged out because NodeMon restarted automatically. But what should be happening now, or at least soon, is whenever we look in our database, we should be seeing a table for sessions, and we should also be seeing session data being inserted within here. And this will help you better visualize what kind of data is being stored within the session in the first place. So if we go ahead and let's see, if we go ahead and refresh our database over here, you'll see that now we have a table created for sessions, which is pretty cool. And if this table was not created for you automatically, well, there are some things that we can do to alleviate this. You can go ahead and create the table automatically by doing the following. If you go ahead and look within this Express MySQL package, let's see where the schema is here. I'm going to search and find for schema. And you'll see the session database table should be created automatically when using default options. If for whatever reason it is not created, you can go ahead and click right here for the schema. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to copy all of this code, head on over to MySQL, click this query button right here. You're going to paste the code in this query section, and then all you have to do is run current, and it's going to create all the necessary schema you'll need in order for this database to work with the session storage package. So now that we have our schema in place, we have a table specifically for sessions in our database. We need to make sure that this table is being filled up whenever we have a user log into our app. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this out of the way for now, and we're going to log another user in with register. Just create some dummy text, like always, a little tedious, but it's not too bad. So we just logged in, and now if we refresh our sessions table in the database over here, we should now see some session data. So I'm going to refresh it with Command R, and you'll see we now have data pertaining to our user session. And this is good because each time we refresh NodeMon now, let's go ahead and do it manually. If I go ahead and cancel out of NodeMon and restart it, actually, let's just keep it canceled out. If I go ahead and refresh my database, you're going to see all of our session data still exists. It's not done away with automatically like it would be if it was being stored within our app rather than the database. If I restart NodeMon now and refresh our page, we're still getting all of our session data. This data is going to persist until we log out our user specifically. So as soon as we call a logout function, this data is going to go away, and it's going to log our user out of our app. So you'll see each time I refresh the page over here and look in our terminal, we're still getting our user ID, and we're still getting true for whether or not the user is authenticated with our app, which is exactly what we want. So now that we have our user's data in a session store, we have a logged in user, and we can do things such as restrict access to certain pages. So let's go ahead and do that now. Let's go head on over to our app again. Let me go ahead and rearrange our windows real quick. And in order to restrict pages, we're going to head on over to our routes. So all we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding a function right before whatever function is supposed to render a specific page. But this function is going to be grabbed from a snippet, which you can grab from the description of the video. So this is a custom snippet that someone created for passport.js. And if we go ahead and paste this at the bottom of our page, you'll see that this is an authentication middleware snippet. And basically what this does is it'll call a request response function, but it'll test to make sure whether or not our user is authenticated. So only if our user is authenticated, only if this is equal to true, will we go on to the next function, which will go ahead and render the page for us. If not, well, we're going to redirect them to another page, whether it be a login page or a register page. So it makes sense for us to redirect them to a login page if they are not logged in currently. So in order to make use of this, we first need to determine which page should we have restricted access to. Well, we want to make sure our users have access to our homepage at all times, because that'd be a little silly to restrict access to that directly, even though there are some use cases in which you may want to do that. Let's go ahead and restrict access to our profile page only if the user is not logged in. So to do this, we first need a route for a profile page, because you'll see if we click this, we're getting 404 not found. So let's go ahead and create a route for this. We'll go ahead and create it right beneath our homepage, our index route, and we'll say router.get. When a user gets a URL called profile, go ahead and return, or go ahead and call the following function. And we want to render a profile page rather than the homepage. So we're going to say render a view of profile, and this is going to have a title of profile as well. So if we look within our views, we don't have a profile view as of yet, so we need to make sure that we're creating one of those. So within the views directory, we'll say profile.hbs. We're creating a profile view. And then let's go ahead and take our home file right here, paste it within profile. We'll go ahead and delete a lot of this. We'll go up to the top. Let's just go ahead and pull our header in, and then we'll just create an H2 called profile page for the time being. And then later on, let's put this in a container as well. Later on, we'll go ahead and pull data specific to the user and display it on this page. Okay, so with this in place, now if we refresh our page over here, we have a profile page, which is awesome. But we want to make sure that we're restricting access to this, so heading back on over to index.js. Right now we have no restriction, which is going to redirect a user if they're not logged in. We need to make sure that we're making use of this function right here. So we're going to be copying this. And to make use of this restriction function, all we're going to do is place it right before whatever function should actually direct a user to this page right here. So all we're going to do is paste it in, call the function, add a comma to the end of it, and now if we go ahead and refresh the page, you're going to see that we have access to it at the moment, and that's because our user is authenticated. If we look within our terminal, you'll see that is authenticated is still equal to true, and at the same time, we're still returning to ourselves a user object which references whichever user is currently associated with the session that we have created. So let's go ahead and log our user out. To log our user out without a logout button, let's go ahead. We can do this one of two ways. We can go ahead and delete our user's cookie within this application section right here, or if we head on over to our section, we can go ahead and just delete this row in the sessions table. So let's go ahead and delete this right here. And once we delete this, if we try to visit our profile page again, you're going to see we're getting 404 not found. And that's because we're being redirected to the login page because this is authenticated, or excuse me, this authentication middleware function right here is determining whether or not our user is logged in. And if they are not, we're redirecting them to a login page, which we have not created as of yet. So let's go ahead and create that now too as well. So we're going to do the same thing. When a user gets a URL for login, we're not going to restrict access to this page, so we want to make sure that we're deleting this right here, but we're going to be calling the following function, which renders a view called login like so. And this is going to have a title of login as well. So now that we created this, we now need to create a view within our views directory. And this is going to be called login.hbs. And same thing with the profile page. We'll just go ahead and grab this, paste it within login.hbs. And instead of profile right here, we are going to call this login. And eventually we're going to add some forms so a user can re-log in even though their username and password are already in our database. So now if we save this and refresh the page, you'll see we have a login page, which is pretty cool. So right now, if we try to access profile, we're not going to be able to. It's just going to redirect us directly to login because a user should only be able to access their profile page if they are logged in currently. And right now, the only way a user can log in is by registering through here, and we're logging them automatically using Express Session and passport.js. But what we want to do is once they have a user account already created, we want to make sure that they can log in again by using this login page right here. So we need to create some forms as a result. So I hope that clears things up in regards to how to implement a data store so that your session storage isn't getting deleted each time NodeMon restarts your app, and also how to restrict access to certain pages using that authentication middleware, which is available within the description of the video. In the next one, we'll create a login form which a user can use to re-access their account. We're going to be making extensive use of Passport within the next one. So get ready, everyone, and I hope you're excited for the next episode. Peace.